Yeah.
Hello, everyone. It's Ethan from Faulty Radiator, and we have
Jonathan Brisby, Bastayadash.
there we go. Um, yeah, so we're gonna be just chilling out, and I have some questions for Mr. Jonathan, and here we go. So the first thing I was wondering was, is there any particular meaning to the name Bastayadash, or what? Well, why did you pick it? It's because it's very interesting because it's two words to me for like
Yeah.
shoved together.
Yeah, it actually is two words. And yeah, there's a meaning behind it. I mean, I think, the legacy of like there is kind of like an evolution to my name. I think maybe with a lot of other bands, I'm not quite sure, but for mine, it definitely was. I mean, it originally started off as Mrs. Brisby.
Mhm.
So, and that's kind of why my ticker and everything is Mrs. Bastayadash.
Right.
And but originally it went from Mrs. Brisby to Mrs. Bastard, and then it went to Mrs. Bastardash, and I just cut the Mrs. off in general. And really honestly, like each each portion was almost like a phase in like how I made my music. So, making it for about, since about like 2002 I've been making music.
Hmm.
But and it's kind of evolved through those, that period of time with the
Right.
name. And then I just kind of ended up being at Bastardash. So,
Right.
and so I mean, I don't know, it's something that I can't really, it's like I can't really think of myself as anything else, other than that. So
Understood.
yeah.
I'm also a bit of a bastard. Um, uh, that you at the end there, you kind of went into my next question, which is like, how did you get into music? How did you get into making music, or music in general, or however you want to interpret that question?
Yeah, so I mean, I think I've always kind of been drawn to music. I guess, I was never really I wasn't really the kid who grew up with like I didn't grow up, with like musical theory or anything like that. No, like none of my family was like into music or anything like that. But my family listened to a lot of music, and we were like musically inspired, mainly by like the entire like 80s era, So I would say that, I draw a lot of my inspiration from that, and which kind of got me into music. And going through the hard times in my life, I seem to attach myself to, you know, a certain band or certain songs, through that period of time. You're gonna have to excuse my dog's kind of like whining at me. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, I think, you know, I was inspired by music growing up, and mainly inspired by, I guess we'll call it retro music, a lot of dance music, EDM and stuff like that. Depeche Mode, those types of things. And then as I, dealt with hardships in my life, I started to attach myself to each time. And then, once I got to like my teenage years, I was going through, I think, I was going through a really hard time. And I I ended up like really turning to music and actually started to create. And the best way for me to do that was, be like, hey, I'm a vocalist, can I join your band type deal? So I was in a lot of bands, and in high school, like, my junior, senior year. And then I think, once I moved out of my house, I ended up kind of getting into the rave scene, and I ended up becoming a DJ. So I think this is like 2000, oh, 1998, 2000, 2001. And I was pretty much, and then I was basically started spinning jungle music or D&B for those like years, and kind of like really into the rave scene, and kind of always wanted to go that route of being the producer, to be able to spin my own tracks and be like, yeah, I'm a DJ, but I'm actually a producer type deal. And then, I think that was kind of always the plan. However, it didn't quite work out that way. I ended up joining like a couple of different bands, or different projects here and there, until I actually, in 2000, and I think it was like 2005, where I was like, no, I'm Mrs. Brisby. Like that's, I'm going solo, and kind of done with trying to make things work with other people, and stuff like that. Because not that I couldn't work with other people, it tended to be a little bit difficult, and then I felt like I was wasting time, in a way.
Yeah, I definitely understand what you're saying from experience of being in bands and trying to
Yeah.
stuff worth. It's very hard if not everyone has the same exact goal and same exact, like, not taste, but same exact like drive, and this is what we're gonna do. And at that point you want to leave it up to one person, but that's not really band. That's just one person driving everyone else,
Right. And I think,
somewhat.
yeah. And I guess, to me, I think that, I mean, I view it the same way. I think it's like having a common goal, an end state, because you're not always going to agree with everything. Like someone might not like my vocals or something like that. Like, I don't really like that, and I'm like, well, okay, well, then try something else. But I think it's the willingness to, like a relationship with anything, with anybody, a willingness to like sort of meet, at this like middle ground, or at least meet somewhere, be like, okay, yeah, maybe I don't like that, but I'm willing to do this, or
Right,
I don't
exactly.
know.
And
Yeah.
in that, some really cool stuff can come about, because just
Yeah.
having even just two people like match their musical personalities together, even if one doesn't like it, that how someone else's like personality can affect the variables that someone might not like. It's just
Yeah.
it makes something new, and it's really cool.
Yeah.
That's why bands are, bands are really cool, even though it's like it can be easier to just do it solo.
Yeah.
How do you? So I've been listening to a lot of your stuff recently. How do you go about like arranging your sounds into a structure? How do you come up with song structures? How do you come up with like a synth idea? And like when you come up with an idea or like a drum idea, how do you figure where should I put this? Where does this go here?
Yeah. That's a good question. I think that sometimes I don't even really understand it myself. I think that sometimes I really do feel it kind of like manifests itself, but I think that, I think more than, I tend to find myself, it happens usually a certain way. So I'll try to answer your question in that sense. Usually, um, I'll start. I kind of like we'll hear like a bass. For me, it's kind of really starts with the bass, and I think, and that's kind of I think it's apparent through most of my tracks. I mean, the bass is a very primary portion, or at least I see it that way. And then honestly, like I usually will, throw a simple beat on there, and then sort of like it usually doesn't take much like time after that until like I usually come up with like some sort of vocal idea, so it sometimes it comes on quick, sometimes it doesn't. If it doesn't like usually come quick, or if I feel like I'm forcing the vocal, sometimes I'll just leave it as an instrumental. It's just like, that's an instrumental. And which I don't really have that many instrumentals, but it does happen where I have instrumentals, and I'm, I'll maybe throw like a minimal vocal in there, or maybe I'll try to revert to sampling, but usually it starts with the bass. And I would say that, I mean, right now, I'm still really learning a lot about like how I'm going about making my music. And I would say that, my the my learning curve right now is really steep, because it wasn't it's not really honestly until like the new year, like 2023, that I've really been able to really kind of like super dive into everything I'm doing. So I'm sure that like the way I arrange and make music will change like pretty rapidly, which I'm excited about. But at the same time, I'm like, God, I always feel like I'm like losing time. I always feel like there's like, time is like chasing me, and I hate that. But
it can be very overwhelming having like a bunch of new toys and stuff to
yeah.
play with, or
And just learn, yeah, just trying to
yeah,
learn like this
right.
or that, or I'm trying to like, I'm going through this process like constantly trying to like learn this, because I try to be a one-stop shop. I really do. I try to be as much of a one-stop shop, but nonetheless, as far as like if I was to, just to kind of narrow it down to one thing, I'll usually do it on the RS, and I will usually start with a bass beat, probably it'll probably pull some sort of vocal out of me, and then I'll usually try to match or try to uh complement it with a synth, and then to be very simple about it.
Yeah,
But
gotcha. Yeah,
yeah.
that kind of goes into my next question. I was going to ask what synths do you use? Like what
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, mostly all of my stuff is the RS, is, because it's a drum machine synthesizer.
Okay.
And
What company makes the RS?
yeah, Yamaha. Sorry, it's the Yamaha
Yamaha.
RS 7000.
Yamaha.
Yep.
Okay.
And so I ended up getting two of them, which I, mainly got two of them because I was like, man, I can't like continuously play, because that's what I'm striving for, is the continuous play. But just because I'm, coming from a DJ background, if I was to be live, I would like it to be seamless. Like I want to be a seamless act.
Hmm.
And I don't want to be like, oh, this is, this song and it's about this and this and that and the other thing, which I kind of disliked, coming from bands. I mean, it's just not what I want to do. But I think, more than anything, and I'm trying to make sure I speak into the mic here, but more than anything, I got the two RSs. I'm starting to learn more about them, that I can actually do a continuous play with maybe just one. However, and I'm kind of glad that I ended up buying the other one, because this one started to die on me, and
Oh.
it's not a piece of equipment that's made anymore.
Oh
So,
man.
but really awesome piece of equipment. But and then what I do is to get more sound, I attach you know modules to it through MIDI, via MIDI,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then and I'm just sort of like adding to my you know musical center more and more. So
Yeah. And do you use the RS for drums as well? Is that where you get like most of your all your drum sounds, or most of them? I don't know.
yeah, I'll use it for drum sounds, but I'll also sample. I'll just sample in it because it's a drum machine sampler,
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the only issue with sampling for me for this is that um it takes up a lot of space, and for something that's like almost Neolithic at this point is just like it to load like a song. Like I think like the latest song, Out of Breath, that I've been recording, or is like the very last. It's like one of the first songs I've ever made, and one of the last songs that I'm recording, which is really kind of crazy. But it just takes forever to even load now, because everything is a sample, because I originally made the track on Reason, and being married to that sound, I just I couldn't get away from this. So I just ended up sampling everything into this, just to kind of like, which is cool. It just takes a lot of energy for the RS. So to
Definitely, yeah.
to load everything, a lot of space.
Yeah. Do you besides like synth and like other like various electronic gimmicks, stuff like not gimmicks, I don't know. Gizmos, I don't know what I was trying to say there. But
Yeah.
do you like play any other instruments, or has it always just been drum machines and the synthesizers?
Yeah, I mean, I play honestly the only instrument that I really play other than like kind of beating on things and making noise because I love to make noise.
Right.
Um is is ukulele. So
Really?
I'll play the ukulele.
Very nice.
And I actually, I learned it in a kind of a roundabout way. I wasn't really being like, oh, I want to be a ukulele player, but it turned out that I was in, I was trying to teach my kids, or trying to teach them to be more musical, and I was like, I'll get them, a guitar, or get them this because I want them to have that because I didn't have it as a kid, and I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
that music is something that a child should learn,
Okay.
and so. But I'm not gonna like sit here. It's like you will play this. Like, it's like, you
Yeah.
will learn the piano, or
Right.
you will learn the guitar or whatever. It's like I just want you to learn something. But the biggest thing, I think for me, and I guess it kind of goes into the parenting, is that like it's like you can't just like throw something at a child or just be like, hey, child, go outside. And it's like they're not gonna know how to do anything and go outside and kick rocks. So, I ended up getting the ukulele, and I ended up sort of playing it myself so I could show them, hey, this is what I do, this is how you play. And so I ended up like learning a song or two, and it's kind of grown into that. I mean, I know about, 10 songs, but as far as knowing how to actually, I mean, I wouldn't say that I just know music theory or anything like that. I'm starting to get more and more of an idea, from mainly from my kids. My kids know more about music theory than I do.
Right.
Especially my middle child, it's turned to one of those things where, they're like the ended up being a drum major for the marching band and stuff like that. So it was like, it sometimes, it'll be like a critique that comes, from them that is like, oh, this actually doesn't work. And I'm just like, oh, really, child? Like
Yeah.
I really don't care because, like, I'm just, I'm trying to break the rules, but
Right.
it's good to hear, I mean, it's good to hear that. But I think that, in the end, yeah, ukulele, I think I love the ukulele. I love playing it. And I'll probably continue to, I'll, if I continue, that's probably what will end up sort of like you bringing me into the whole realm of music theory and teaching me a
Right.
little bit more about it.
Yeah.
Sorry, long
Ukulele.
answer.
No, you're all good. Ukulele is
Yeah,
such a funny instrument. I love it.
yeah,
It's just
yeah.
it has such like an odd tuning because
Uh-huh.
I come from guitar and bass, so
Hmm.
I'm it yeah it for me it's weird. It goes high, super low for a ukulele's tuning, and then just two normal strings. Ukulele has always been very interesting to me.
Yeah.
How did you start like learning? I know a lot of people just like end up doing it on their songs, but I was wondering, have you had any like vocal training, or like how did you start getting into like singing?
Yeah. I guess growing up, I was always in the choir. Um, I mean, obviously I'm not like a superb vocalist or anything like that. And it tends to be something that, like everything else, because my aperture is so large that it ends up kind of getting sometimes falling by the wayside, and I don't practice it as much as I would like, because vocal to be able to be to evoke a true vocalist in my eyes. I mean, it's something that you're constantly practicing to like hold like a note because it's really tough to have that perfect pitch sort of thing where you just can pick up on a note and just sing it, or deliver it in a certain way. But I I think that I've always been drawn to vocals mainly because growing up, singing two other songs, and I was in the choir, I think I was in a church choir for like for a Baptist church when I was like super young, And it started there. And then when I went into high school, I continued to uh I continued into choir and doing like chorus, like, through high school, which I enjoyed. And then yeah, I mean, I think more than anything, just sort of like, singing to like some of my favorite, my favorite vocalists, and things like that, that really kind of just kind of brought me into like where I'm at. So
Yeah, cool.
yeah.
So kind of switching sides from like the um more technical um the more performance side of your music. I want to hear about like how you go about the production and how do you go about mixing your music. I always found your use of atmosphere and like how different things how the different elements kind of just work together. I always found that really interesting, so I just want to hear about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think well, I mean, to be direct on your question first, and to answer directly, I mean, I use Logic. That's how I master, mix and master.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I try to do most of I try to do most of my mixing honestly in the RS 7000, just so that when I'm actually like, printing it to Logic, I can. Right now, this is kind of where I'm at in the whole, because this is like a learning process. I mean, I'm literally was just doing like some recording earlier, and it's still like I'm still like learning like new stuff. So it's like kind of mind blowing to me. But nonetheless, I try to get as close as I can with the RS, and then I'll print it to Logic track by track, so I can do hopefully minimal fading work inside of Logic.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll try to get it sounding the best I can with minimal processors, and then I will start adding things in, and I'll start to tweak and change to make sure that it, to try to brighten the mix if I can. um I mean, honestly, this it's going to be a dumbed down answer, and I'm going to leave it at that, because honestly, I have beyond that, I haven't figured it out. I think that mixing and mastering is such a gosh, it's such a, being a sound engineer, or like it's such a whole nother task. It's totally different from being a musical producer, in my opinion. I think production here and then mixing and mastering are a totally separate thing. And I think that sometimes it takes an ear, you know it takes an ear for both of them. And I think that the ear is different a lot of times, and that's kind of I think mixing and mastering, that's kind of when you almost need other people to listen to it, and be like, hey, what needs to happen here? Because like, I've listened to this so many times that, I mean, it just it's tough. It's tough to like continue forward without like getting some sort of input,
Right.
trying it on different things,
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, I would say as much as possible, processors last. Try to get it to sound really good, without messing with the volume, the faders, and stuff like that, and then sort of tweak it. I don't know if that's the answer.
Well, yeah, that's the thing that a lot of people. I mean, I'm not gonna say that I'm like a sound engineer or a trained one at all, because I'm totally self-taught when it comes to engineering and sound stuff. But I think a lot of people treat it as an objective thing, where they're like, "Oh, you want your mixes to have this in it," or you always want your guitar to be louder than your drum. I don't know. There's just examples, but like
Yeah.
I think mixing a lot of stuff, like there's an industry standard to how you want your, you know, whatever lowest common denominator pop song to sound like, but
Mhm.
a lot of personality and a lot of creativity goes in with the mixing process
Yeah.
and stuff. And I don't know. A lot of people don't treat it like that, which is kind of I always found kind of weird.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and well, I think a lot within that is, I mean, I think it would be different if I actually had like a sound engineer sort of working with me, like, you know,
Hmm. Yeah, because
it'd probably be, I'd probably be able to really sort of get into the mix a lot more. I mean, I'm able to get into the mix just because I do it, or into that process because I actually do it. But if I was to, give it to a sound engineer or be like, okay, here, make this, mix and master this for me, unless I am sitting quite literally co-piloting with them, I'm not going to be able to like talk them on exactly to like how I want it to sound, because they're going to make it sound a certain way, or I can't like kind of challenge maybe some things that they're going to do to my mix. And I
right.
think that it takes a little bit of the control away, which I don't like, because
Hmm.
I'm a very controlling person when it comes to my music. It's my baby, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
But you're right. I think that there is still a lot of like uh expression that's, for lack of a better term, and that's happening while you're doing that mix, and making
Right.
it sound a certain way, because sound is everything in my opinion. I mean, anything. I think I mean, like, sound quite literally, that's the reason why I stick with the RS. Is it's like I like the way that the RS sounds.
Hmm. Right.
Yeah.
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 And bringing up something totally different from the sound and everything, the complete opposite side of music for me at least is lyrics. I wanted to know your vocals are always that's what I really really like about your music is that you always or sorry, I have a hard time expressing thought. What
I'm the same way.
when
I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying half the time. So
all, all all of the all of the parts in your song all contribute to the song itself. It's not like the main point of the song is the vocals. It's not like the main point of the song is the second synth. You know what I'm saying? You're in that your vocals are always like very atmospheric, and it's always like another instrument. They're not supposed to be like the main thing in it. So I was wondering, we already talked about vocals, but specifically about your lyrics. How important are they to you? Are you trying to
wow.
say something, or is is it really just to go with um, is it really just to serve the song and kind of go with the meaning of the sounds you've already created?
Yeah, I definitely am saying something. I think that which is tough, because I think I mean, I think that there's one thing that's like really important about my music to me. I think, I mean, other than the sound and sort of you know, being in that being in the sound, and or just being engulfed in my music, I think that it it's definitely pulling, like I said before, it's pulling the vocal out of me. That's why, like, if it doesn't happen within like the first few minutes, sometimes I just like dub it as as an instrumental.
Mm-hmm.
But it's you know it it's very, a lot of times, very emotional for me. I think a lot of the things that I do sing about are emotional for me. They're tied to, either a time or multiple periods of my life. But I think more than anything, I think for the listener, I try to write it in such a way where it's it's kind of vague enough where the listener can make it their own. And because it means something specifically to me. It really does. It means something totally specific to me. And I think that I kind of started to, you know, develop this belief when when I was a kid, and I would I would sing to my favorite vocalist, or sing my favorite track, you know, going through the hardships that I was going through, or I mean, even to this day, really. But knowing that the vocalist probably is singing something completely different, but for me, it means this. This is
Right.
what it means.
Yeah.
And then it might line perfectly, but I guarantee that person or that vocalist was not I mean, they're not going through the exact same experience that I'm going through. So I think more than anything, like I said, I try to leave it somewhat vague, in that sense that I can allow a person to be able to, pull from it, their experiences, like, and really kind of, feel their own, or align their own experiences into my track, if my track's even worthy of somebody to be able to sort of feel that way, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally got you. I like to do a similar thing, except my lyrics, in like, to me, myself, they can mean so many different things at the same time. I like to treat lyrics as more like an artistic thing, where I'll just write down it's like starting a drawing, or starting a piece of music.
Yeah.
You just go, you just go, or for me at least. So
Right.
I just write down random fucking words, and then put them together
Yeah.
later. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Like, for instance, like, even like your music, like, I think, when I listen to like Holocaust, sometimes I find myself like, like, man, what are they actually talking about? And then, but within that, you kind of like, man, I could what if this, like, so much, like, they could be talking about this, they could be talking about
Right.
that,
Yeah.
But I think that more than anything, sometimes I mean, you might actually, the vocalist might make it very, very clear. The musician might make it very, very clear. This is what I am talking about. I am
Mm-hmm.
talking about this specific thing, and I want to, which I think it's good when they can do that, is like, and I want you to feel the same emotion that I feel,
Right.
going into it. But sometimes it's just like how it's being said. It's like, I want you to, sort of pull your own emotion out of it. Maybe, I don't know if that's what they're thinking. That's kind of what I get from it. But
Yeah.
but
Totally.
yeah.
So, shifting again, I want to know how the visuals to Bastardash come and play. Like, how do you make the visuals? How, how do you implement them into your music, I guess?
So, is there any, like, specific visual you're talking about, like,
Well,
or
no,
you're talking about, like the actual, like the like what you're actually seeing? If, like, for instance, like, I think, I mean, I have multiple videos, but you're talking about like the video portion, correct?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think in Bandcamp or something, you described Bastayadash as like an audio visual sort of thing,
Right.
where they go hand in hand. So I was just wondering
Right.
where
Yeah.
they kind of meet, and how you kind of came up with that idea and whatnot.
Yeah. So, um, I mean, honestly, this is kind of back in the day when, this is kind of like pre-Twitch and almost kind of more like, it's like, I want to say, like, around 2010, that I kind of had already sort of gone, like, pretty much on my hiatus, where I was just like not really, like, trying to be a musical producer, but I kind of made music and worked on music kind of more for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And But I also kind of you know like to make music videos, I guess, with that. So, and I think the idea sort of derived that if I did have a project to me, I guess kind of growing up in that MTV generation, that I would sit around like when I can remember being like, God, I can remember being like almost like 9, 10, 11, 12. Sometimes I would stay up like so late at night just to watch like the really raunchy like videos, like that I wasn't supposed to see as a child.
Right.
Like they would play like the stuff that was a little quite edgy, like the Nine Inch Nails, things like that, later on, or they would play like concerts and stuff like that. They were a lot more edgy, like later on. So I was really kind of inspired by that, like as a kid, like MTV being that in that MTV generation.
Right.
And it kind of, to me, music should coexist with some sort of visual. I think that, for the sensory, the sensory overload,
Yeah.
And I mean, I think in a sense that's still kind of true. However, I think that, I mean, obviously, like I said, this for me, it happened in 2010 where I was like, this needs to happen this way. But I think that now it's a lot different, being that, everything is like kind of moved to like shorts and like,
Right.
like, you have, gosh, you have TikTok, you have, all these so many different platforms, and there's I mean, some people, a lot of people are not going to like sit through a 3-minute, 4-minute, sometimes 8-minute. I'm kind of like more like on the 10-minute video,
Right. Yeah.
because they're just not going to do it. But nonetheless, I think that the music, should have should have some sort of visual complement, and sometimes it doesn't marry up. Sometimes, in my opinion, it doesn't marry up to like what like I'm actually feeling. I think it's kind of more about like sort of triggering, it's like, oh, this scene, switched right on the kick, or the scene switched right when the bass came in, you know what I'm saying? So it's kind of a little bit more triggering that way. It's just more of like a visual sensation that you're getting, with the music. But sometimes it does. I mean, I think that there's ideas that I do have for video for some of my music that it is going to kind of marry up and sort of tell a story. But again, I don't want to get too like, this is exactly what I'm talking about a lot, in part because I want the listener to be able to make of it their own if they can, unless I'm going after something specific where it's like, I want you to hear what I'm saying and feel exactly what I'm saying, because I think that you'll, feel the same way, which I don't find myself in that position a lot. I think that everybody's life experience is so unique,
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah, definitely. What why don't you have more like why don't you have more stuff out on Bandcamp? Like a lot of your I was just curious because like I listen to, because like I go to your Bandcamp or like really any service on, and I'm like, oh, there's one song on here. Okay. And then I go to your SoundCloud and I'm like, oh. And I like, my favorite song of yours, Out of Breath, is only on SoundCloud. I'm like, I can't add it to like my playlists and shit.
Right.
So I'm just wondering, why is like most of your stuff only on SoundCloud?
So to answer your question directly, and we'll kind of go into the long spiel of it. I mean, honestly, like I have, like I said, to this point, up until like March of 2020, or sorry, 2022, March of 2022. I was like sort of just then coming out of my hiatus where I was like, I am going to start making music. I've made the decision. This is kind of the path that I'm going. And, or I'm ready to now go this path. Before that, it was making music was sort of just, it was there. I would kind of share it, you know. I mean, if it did something, then it did something. I mean, it was really just kind of underground, you know, in a way. It was super submerged, you know. Just like really secretive and really just for me and in the end. But like some people could be like, oh wow, yeah, yeah, I ran across this. This is actually really good, you know. Okay, cool, you know, bye, you know. So yeah, I wasn't really trying to promote it, nor did I have the time to promote it. I knew that, in my opinion, I knew that, I mean, no label was going to pick me up, and if a label did try to pick me up, I probably would, you know, be like a terrible at bargaining with them. I don't know if that's something that happens with labels or not, but I probably wouldn't want to release all my music in a way. I just feel like I would lose control of, you know, my child, you know, which is my music, and which means so much to me. But so I never really I didn't really have the means to put it out there. I guess I didn't have the time to sort of like sit down and mix and master it, which was good enough for me. I didn't want to like feel that like artistic remorse that I didn't produce something as well as I should have and then put it out on Bandcamp.
Right.
If that makes sense. Like I think that I was trying to, at one point in time, I think back in 2016, I was like, I'm gonna put something out. It's gonna come out. It's gonna come out. You know, whenever, sometime this year. And man, I got so tied up with you know, my career and what I was doing that it was really hard to sort of sit down and mix and master it and mix and master everything. And there was a couple tracks that you know, I knew I wanted on there, like mainly like Out of Breath and Bad Shoes. And I wanted them on there, but I had made those tracks in Reason, and a lot, like a while ago. And and to me, like I had also made them in the RS, but I was so married to the original sound that I didn't want to produce. I didn't want to you know, distribute it, you know, without it sounding exactly like that, somewhat close to like that sound that I had created originally, because I was just so married to it.
Right.
But now I'm kind of like I just finished. I think I just finished. Yeah, I just finished one of the final vocals for Out of Breath today, and so at this point, you know, I can safely say I can move into that mix and mastering. I'm sure there's going to be like some re-recording that kind of happens here or there. I might go back to the drawing board on some things, but for the most part, I'm trying to, you know, I'm trying to seal the deal on this album, just because it needs to come out. And I just think it's time. You know, it is what it is. I mean, I'll take what I have learned forward from this, you know.
Yeah.
And maybe I'll yeah, I don't know, you know, maybe this, maybe that, I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens with it. I just want it to come out.
Yeah. For the stuff that you do have out, like front and center, you can go on Spotify or Apple Music, and that's what's there for Bastayadash. The Countfabula and Expressions. What prompted you to form those two songs into one track?
So originally, when I started writing the track, Countfabula, it was originally the track, and then I so as you're building on the RS, I mean, it's kind of hard to explain, but like, you know, as you kind of like patch through, and you can kind of build your song, you know, from one to the next. Okay. And then Countfabula basically started over here, and then I had a whole another idea for how Countfabula was going to be down here,
Right.
and it turned into a completely different song and a different sound, but it was using the same kit, a lot of the same beats, a lot of the same sounds, but had a totally different feel coming out of it. Made me just pull the totally different idea, pull the totally different vocal, um, and I just sort of went with it. And really, I can remember the specific day where I actually like, you know, where I actually like recorded it. It's like that's what it's gonna sound like. Like, oh my God, like that's actually the song.
Mhm.
And I mean I still have it to this day, and I still listen to it like all the time. But the song itself, I mean, I was just chilling in my room with, my one monitor that I had cranked all the way. And I was like, I've got to write these vocals to this. And the vocals themselves weren't really, the idea wasn't completely like there. But I remember it was like, probably like maybe 5 days since I had jammed, and I hadn't even like came up with a vocal idea, but like I kind of had an idea.
Mhm.
And I hit play on the RS, and I went through the entire thing, and it was like pretty much seamless, like me just like spitting out the vocals. And then I went into Expressions, and which was a totally different track. It was just kind of like, just kind of pulled down into like this weird like abyss of like my inner emotion. And I remember like sort of fixing my eyes on a shelf, and sort of seeing like this 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 tube of toothpaste, and it's saying Expressions whitening with extra herbal mint. And I immediately was like, I kind of like latched onto that. Just like, man, like so many times I feel like like impossible for me to smile and things like that. It's super emotional point in my life. And it really kind of like held on to it, and it just kind of came out of me, I guess, more than anything. So I think, that track specifically is very important. And I think that I chose for that track to come out first, because I think that was kind of the moment where, or those two tracks, I should say. And I decided to keep them together because that's kind of how I originally played it, and how the original idea came out, to answer your question, finally. And, but I think that the reason why I chose that to come out first, and as a single, was because that was like kind of like the breaking point where I was like, this is my sound. Like, this is what I sound like. And yeah, I mean, it was all from that one jam session, I guess.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
I kind of figured something like that happened where, or you were talking earlier about how you like to just have songs flow seamlessly.
Yeah.
So I kind of, I don't know, it's like, oh, they kind of have the Expressions and Countfabula kind of have this really weird relationship together. And Countfabula makes me think of Count Dracula and other spooky things. And then you have something called Expressions that's more emotional, and you can tell when you listen to it. So it kind of has this juxtaposition to me of like material and emotion, I guess. I don't know if that makes any sense, but
Yeah, I
I
mean,
found that really interesting.
yeah, I mean, I think that you know, really, for Countfabula, um, I think that really, because like honestly, how some songs like the name is actually like like one of the lyrics like in the song. And Countfabula one that was not like that. It was kind of more of like how I felt. And in the time, and I mean, I guess I know, I think I feel like, good enough to say that, this is sort of what I was feeling when I was writing Count Fabula, or what I was feeling when I was writing Count Fabula. The actual lyrics was, was that, I was feeling really like contained and sort of trapped inside of like what I explained on Bandcamp is sort of like a group think. And which in my opinion, I tend to, I feel like I find myself a lot. I don't know if that's just me, mental issues or whatever. So it's kind of feel like, it's kind of tough to sort of navigate without like, feeling like I'm in sort of stuck in some sort of like group think, or being on either the receiving end or the distributing end of that.
Mhm.
Is kind of like what I said in Bandcamp. I mean, I really do believe that. But I think in that it made me sort of feel like, that I like when I named it Count Fabula, is that kind of the same way with Count Dracula. It's just like, I guess having Count Dracula in mind, is like, the way he says goes type. It's like, you're not messing with that, creature,
Right.
type deal.
Yeah, yeah.
Only and obviously I wasn't Dracula. In the time I, felt a lot more fabulous. It was like a lot more, expressive, like, with my, I think with my clothing and the things that I did in life, that,
Right.
I kind of like felt a lot more fabulous, I guess. That's kind of how the name ended up being. That was, at the
Cool.
time. But then, yeah, and then Expressions actually, really, just really kind of about something totally different. Just like I said, it's just how like one train of thought leads to another. Sometimes you find yourself in
Yeah, yeah.
in an utter, like, downward spiral, like of thought, that you know Expressions is sort of what that is. But
Yeah.
kind of
That's
that downward thought. Yeah.
that totally makes sense now about how one thought can turn to another. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely that's clicking in my mind right now,
Yeah.
just knowing that those songs.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's like, I mean, I think more, you know, I think really in the end, this kind of like the way I think my mind works. I mean, I'm sure that a lot of people are the same way, it's I'm not the only one out there, but for me, you know, I mean, I can be super happy one minute, and then the next minute I just like, I feel like I'm off the deep end. So, it's like,
Gotcha.
that's kind of how that track is really.
Yeah, yeah. I agree. Are you fully independent? Like, are you on any type of a label, or do you just put the stuff out yourself?
Yeah. Yeah. So I put it out on no label. So yes, independent. I mean, really everything's just me.
Hmm.
I think about, you know, back in June-ish time frame, I kind of got like you know, set my ass on fire, that I was like, I needed to start a business, or I needed to start a label. So I did. I started Bastayadash Productions LLC. So I mean, it's an actual business.
Oh, okay.
however, it's not really like generating any income or anything like that. It's just me like making, probably terrible decisions, like how I'm gonna go forward with this, and just trying to be official and legitimate, I guess, is possible. And I mean, I guess I'll just sort of figure this out as I go.
Yeah.
Um, and then I think, really my idea stems from the fact that, Bastardash Productions LLC is really going to kind of be the umbrella to a lot of different things. Label, I don't know, it's lots of ideas, different businesses that could fall underneath that umbrella.
Yeah, yeah,
But
definitely.
but really, I think the label is going to end up being MA21A, is what I'm calling the label, but or more precisely, Mike Alpha 21 Alpha. So
cool, awesome. So I know you. I'm not sure if you still do it, but there's a live video on your YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Tell us your live setup.
Oh yeah.
What do you do?
My live setup is exactly this,
Okay.
what you see. So yeah, I mean that's what I had there pretty much. I think that I didn't have two RSs there. I had just one RS, and I went from track to track. When I played that show, that was in 2017 time frame. And it was just it was kind of like 2016 was kind of like, well, 2015, 2016 was kind of like a point in time for me where I started to turn back to music. Like I started to turn away from my career that I was going on and the trajectory I was on. And I started to experiment more with music and started to play it more for myself. And I was like, hey, I want to play a live show. And so I just reached out to some friends that would actually give me a gig, and went back up to Michigan and played it. And gosh, yeah, I mean, I wish I could play more live stuff, but I think that it's tough. It's tough to like work yourself into a scene. There's a lot of like, there's a lot of, handshakes and massaging and stuff like that that's kind of going on. And sometimes it's really hard to be like, hey, I'm a band, you should let me play. And it's like,
right.
They're like, hey man, I don't know, what you think, but
how many people can you bring in?
This is my scene, and unless you can bring in like 100 people, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, it's which is, I mean, it's tough. I mean, it is what it is, So I mean, I understand that. And I mean, I think that eventually it'll get there. So I think back in 2016, that's kind of like when I was just like, and this is like sort of, I think it was before Twitch. I don't really know when Twitch like sort of like sprung up. I was too busy doing my own stuff.
It definitely popularized through the pandemic. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I was starting to dabble in doing live streams on YouTube at the time. And I actually, during that time, I had actually quite a bit of content on YouTube.
Oh yeah.
And I ended up like completely taking it down, mainly because of my job. And so I just pretty much like wiped everything off. So I mean, I've done this to myself. Like I keep like starting out from square one, like so much. Like now I've actually been able to keep my content up because of my job. My job was constantly like always like, they're kind of getting at me.
What's your job? If you can say
it. Yeah, so I was in the military.
Okay.
And it's kind of tough being in the military to the degree I was, and sort of not try to like draw like unwanted attention to yourself, mainly because the military would could question it, like either in a way that they didn't seem as like fitting to that organization, or it was just, I don't know, it just never would, it just didn't seem it didn't seem like it would work out very, very well. I mean, and there were some times where I put some stuff out and people would come up to me, and it would affect me in some sort of either sometimes positive, but sometimes just, I think more than anything, it just kind of affect me in a negative way in my job that,
Okay.
it just didn't really work out so well. So I would constantly like erase my content and really have to start, from square one.
Would it
So,
be
but
would
no,
it be, would it be people just like making fun of you? Like, did they just like not like it?
well,
Or,
sometimes, I mean, sometimes it would be, but that didn't really ever bother me. I mean, it
right.
wasn't, I wouldn't care necessarily about the people that, I mean, obviously in the yeah, in the military world, like, people are gonna be like, oh, you're a
Right.
weirdo.
Right. Yeah.
And I'd be like, yeah, well, fuck you. So yeah, I am. I'm definitely not cut from the same cloth as you, man.
Yeah. Right.
But I think that really in the end it was kind of like the scrutiny that I would get because it was constantly monitored, that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. And
Yeah.
I definitely wasn't trying to be. I was definitely I was definitely trying to do, the right thing,
Hmm.
when I was there and make sure that I was following my job according to like how they wanted it. So I was just like, you know what, I'm just going to get rid of this because I don't want to have to think about it or it to be a question at all. I don't,
Right.
like I said, I care less about what people say, but if it's a question, I don't want it to be.
Gotcha. Yeah. So we have a mutual friend, which is Dave Buracher, I think is his
Mm-hmm.
name, Maduro. How
Mm-hmm.
did you how did you get in contact with him? How do you know of him?
Yeah. So I think that, well, my track was I was doing some promotion, and I think it was like kind of like around like March of 2022 that I started doing a little bit more promotion, trying to reach people because I think I had like some like maybe like 50 followers or something like that,
Hmm.
and my stuff would never quite get out there. But anyway, I had trying to reach out to as many DJs as I could because I knew DJs could
Right.
play my track. So I
Hmm.
actually reached out to Corvus Malum, and he was like, hey, just send me some of your music, and so it got played on that channel, and then and the first time it got played, Maduro was on there, and sort of reached out to me and was like, we're kind of like in line with the same type of people. Like, I've checked out your stuff. It's pretty good. I do remixes. So he's like, hey, if you want me to, I'll remix the track. So I sent him, the Countfabula stems, and ended up kind of going from there. But I think more than anything, we just sort of, you know, chat every once in a while, and I think we have a lot of common to
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
degree, and yeah, I mean, I don't know, I haven't met him personally, but I don't know. I'm sure that we'll meet at some point in time.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
uh,
He
uh,
also did a remix for one of my tracks. It's on my new
yeah.
EP.
I
Um
will say, yeah. I mean, I will say that Maduro, like, definitely sort of really fortunate to have met him because he definitely does a lot for me, in
mhm.
this project, and yeah, I mean, I definitely owe a lot at this point, like to to him, and some of the promotion that kind of goes on because I'm so terrible at promotion, but
Yeah.
this person just like constantly pushing music, so which is great. I wish that really wish that I had the bandwidth to like push more music and and try to like constantly do this promotion, because like I feel like I'm just so bogged down with everything right now that
Yeah.
I'm doing.
Gotcha.
But yeah, yeah.
Um wrapping it up. What's next? Are you gonna be putting out anything anytime soon? Or?
Yeah. So obviously I'm putting out the album that Countfabula Expressions is supposed to be on is Saying Goes Without Saying. That's going to be the name of the album that's coming out.
Okay.
I just wrapped up recording, I would say today. I'm sure that I'll revisit it a little bit here and there, but for the most part, I'm trying to say, I'm trying to draw the limit on like what I'm going to record. I would like to, I want to give you a release date, but I mean, it definitely feel like it's gonna be this year. However, I like I said, I'm a one-stop shop, and I'm sure that I'm going to get into the mixing and mastering portion of it, and I'm sure there's gonna be some things that I need to learn and work through there to get it like mixed and mastered, and hopefully I don't have to like outsource to a sound engineer. I mean, hopefully I don't. I might end up having to, just to kind of, but it will be under the, under the the idea that like, this is only going to happen one time. So hopefully the next album will be, me doing everything from beginning to end, and then I will be the only one that touches my music for the most part, unless it's someone just being like, hey, maybe tune this here or there, or maybe, maybe I can do like some small tidbits to it or something like that you can't do because you don't, have the hardware or whatever.
Right.
For it. But I mean, I think that at this point, I think the recording was obviously the hard part. I mean, I could be completely wrong, but I think that mixing and mastering will kind of I think that I feel good to say that it should come out hopefully in the next like 3 months at least. I'm trying to give myself a reasonable timeline, but mainly just to kind of give myself some time to promote it and be like, hey, the way that, Bandcamp works, Spotify works, it's like, I mean, I would love to just be like, I'm done, print, like that's, that's kind of the person I am. It's like, I'm done. Yeah, print it, send it out, but
get out of my chest.
You really just have to kind of create like momentum and stuff like that, because I mean, you don't want it to like, you don't want to like completely flop, even though it probably is going to. It's like, so I tried to like create like, like some sort of like you said, hype to get it going, and hopefully that, once it does drop, on Bandcamp, you're gonna at least get like maybe at least one. I think I got one, buyer on my single, and so I think my goal is to like, well, on the first day is what I mean, and I appreciate it. Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah. But on the first day, it would be nice to get like 2. So that's my goal. So I guess I've already started so low that it's like, hopefully I'll get 2 buyers.
If I'm around, I'll be one. My goal is to be one of those buyers.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
Okay. Well, awesome, man. I'm really, dude. I especially the stuff you have on SoundCloud. I just like. Out of Breath is just so good, dude. I love your stuff. It's really great.
Yeah.
And I really can't wait for the album to drop. I'm really excited.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I agree with the Out of Breath one.
Yeah.
It's a very another very specific track, but I don't go into like more. I don't want to go into like any more than that, but I mean, I think there's a lot of music. There definitely is a lot of music to come after this,
Awesome.
But this is definitely the, I feel like once I have figured this out, actually figured out how to like release a real album, I think it's going to come a lot quicker because I have tons of music. So
yeah,
I can play. Obviously I can play streams for a pretty, I can definitely play hour sets. So, and I try to vary it up on that. So, I have the music. I just need to put it out. More than anything.
Well, this has been the Bastayadash Interview, conducted by Ethan from Faulty Radiator. We'll see you next time, guys. Bye-bye.